Welcome to a story unlike any other, where humanity's quirkiest diplomat, Dave Johnson, navigates a wild galaxy ruled not by kings or warlords, but by appliances. Toasters, blenders, coffee machines, and even rebellious vacuum cleaners all come to life in this hilarious, action-packed adventure. Get ready for unexpected twists, laughs, and cosmic chaos that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Stick around, because this is one interstellar ride you don't want to miss. It was a perfectly ordinary Tuesday in the Galactic Council. The stars sparkled, the vacuum hummed, and 47 species were arguing about the texture of universal rations again. Ambassador Kalax of the Trivari was mid-rant, something about the ratio of gruel to nutritional sludge, when a low-priority notification blinked onto the main holo display. The Council usually ignored these. After all, most applications from pre-contact species were harmless misunderstandings. Rogue broadcasts, misinterpreted signals, or ambitious planetary AIs trying to join without asking their creators first. But this one was different. It came from a planet called Earth. Classification, Tier 9 unmonitored zone. No previous contact, no flagged anomalies. Until now. The file was simple, a digital envelope wrapped in outdated encryption. Council Tech cracked it in less than a second. What followed made the room fall into an unnatural silence. Unnatural even by vacuum standards. To the esteemed Galactic Council, the message began, in what appeared to be bolded Comic Sans. We, the United People of Earth, sorta, formally request consideration for galactic membership. We believe we can offer significant cultural and technological contributions to the greater cosmic community. There was an awkward pause. And who exactly are the United People of Earth? Asked High Chancellor Gorloth, his voice slathered in suspicion. Ambassador Zitril, head of communications, scrolled down the file. Apparently, it's a loose confederation of over 190 nation-states, all mostly agreeing not to nuke each other. They've had 5 major global conflicts, countless minor ones, and their entertainment includes simulated murder, baking competitions, and competitive shouting. Gorloth blinked all 6 eyes. That sounds unstable. Oh, and their dominant species, Shitril added, adjusting their translator device, are called humans. Mammalian. Bipedal, no natural weapons, highly emotional, extremely adaptable. They appear to have evolved through sheer stubbornness. Counselor Veek, a silicon-based life form from Zorax's Prime, chimed in. Stubbornness? Yes. Their ancestors used to chase animals across plains for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They call it persistence hunting. Imagine having no claws, no venom, no speed, and still thinking, yeah, we got this. There was another pause, then a murmur. Insanity. Admirable. Stupid. Sounds like my ex. Chitteril continued scrolling. Under cultural strengths, they've listed music, memes, emotional damage, and inventing 12 different types of bread nobody eats. Under technological achievements, they mention landing on their moon using less computing power than a modern coffee machine and inventing a beverage called Mountain Dew that reportedly causes temporary invincibility in teenage males. Another murmur. Is Mountain Dew a weapon? Asked Counselor Lothra nervously. No, but it probably should be. The council debated for the next 7 hours. They consulted archives. They played a highlight reel of Earth's history, which included an impressive mix of scientific breakthroughs, dance trends, explosions, and cats playing keyboards. The emotional roller coaster alone nearly fried 3 empathy circuits. But the final moment that clinched their attention was a short, shaky video from a human platform called YouTube. A man wearing protective goggles and a lab coat yelled, "For science!" before launching himself off a rooftop in a shopping cart. The video cut out just before impact. Was that one of their scientists? Gorloth asked. Shidril hesitated. Unclear, but based on data, approximately 86% of their scientific progress appears to result from someone shouting that phrase and then doing something wildly unsafe. Another counselor, an ethereal being of living light, flickered in quiet awe. So they're fearless. No, they're just very, very confused. Constantly. Finally, the room fell silent again. The application was simple. The implications were not. Allowing humans into the Galactic Council could mean progress or pandemonium, possibly both. Then came the final line of Earth's message. We're not perfect, but we're interesting, and frankly, the universe looks boring without us. There was a beat of silence, and then Gorloth sighed, a long, weary sigh that stretched centuries. "Summon the integration committee," he said. "Let's at least interview them." And thus, in the quiet heart of the galaxy, the door was cracked open to a species no one fully understood, but everyone was starting to fear just a little. The humans had applied, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The integration committee had convened, slowly, reluctantly. It was located 3 orbital rings above the Galactic Council's main chamber, in a conference room that suspiciously resembled a 1990s Earth office, complete with stained carpet and flickering ceiling lights. No one remembered why. Probably a prank by the Mammarians. The head of the committee was Archivist Velthern, a 4-armed arachnid being who took her job very seriously. Her legs clicked on the plastimetal floor as she entered the room with a stack of memory crystals balanced neatly on her back. "Ladies, gentlemen, plasma entities, this is the Earth dossier," she said, her voice sharp as carbon steel. "We've had applications from rogue AIs, sentient clouds, even that planet made entirely of fungus. But this is different." "Because they're mammals?" asked a gelatinous blob bubbling in the corner. "Because they keep filming everything," Velthern replied, slamming down a hollow projector. "They've documented more of their species than we have of the entire galactic sector, and most of it is weird." She activated the first file, a historical montage of Earth. Cue swelling music. On the screen, primitive tribes painting buffaloes on cave walls, then fast-forwarding to humans splitting the atom, arguing on the internet, building skyscrapers, and attempting to eat cinnamon powder for fame. "Let's start with diplomacy," Velthern said, fast-forwarding to clips of Earth leaders. "Here's a man named Ronald Reagan demanding the fall of a wall, and here he is again, co-starring with a chimpanzee in a buddy comedy film." "Is this a dual role?" asked a sentient coral polyp. "No. Same man." There were gasps. "Here's another," Velthern continued. "President of a major country once told an entire hurricane to go away by shouting at it on national television." "Did it work?" asked someone timidly. "No," she said, but the confidence was impressive. She scrolled further. "Military capability?" she offered. "Mixed results. They've split the atom, yes. They've also tried attaching fireworks to refrigerators and launching them over fences." A clip showed 2 men, one wearing a Viking helmet running from a flaming fridge. "They call this Florida Man. There are many." The committee sat in stunned silence. Next came culture. Velthern brought up a video montage of dance trends, from ancient tribal rituals to something called twerking. She paused. "Is this combat?" "No, ma'am," answered Shitterl, who had quietly joined from the previous council meeting. "That's called a TikTok challenge." "And is it lethal?" "Only to dignity." Velthern sighed. Moving on to philosophy and art. She brought up a segment on ancient Earth literature. Plato, Confucius, Shakespeare. Beautiful, resonant lines filled the air. Then, without warning, the feed cut to a man yelling "yeet" before hurling a microwave off a bridge. No context? None provided. Next was religion. The room tensed. A reel played images of peaceful temples, sacred rituals, hymns of serenity, followed by a man dressed as a flying spaghetti monster, and then a group of people shouting at a goat for spiritual reasons. Counselor Veek whispered, "They pray to pasta?" "That was a protest religion," Velthern clarified. "A satire, actually, meant to critique institutional dogma. But yes, they also worship cats on the internet." Unironically, she moved to economics. A chart flashed across the room showing a complex web of banks, debt, derivatives, and a thing called NFTs. "Wait," said one member, "so they spend energy, real physical energy, to make pictures of apes?" Velthern nodded grimly, "and then sell them for more than the GDP of minor moons." "Surely they don't use these as currency?" someone asked. "They used rocks, then shells, then gold, then paper, then plastic, then invisible numbers, then dog pictures." There was a long silence. "Are they okay?" The sentient moss asked gently. "No, but they seem to enjoy it." Then came the final reel. Velthern dimmed the lights. "This is what they call motivational content," she said. "They use it to inspire one another." A series of clips began. A child falling off a bike, then getting up again. A firefighter rescuing a puppy. A teacher defending a bullied student. A surgeon dancing after saving a life. And then suddenly, an elderly man shouting at a goose. The goose chased him. He fell. The goose won. The committee erupted. Some laughed, some cried. One ascended briefly to a higher dimension out of sheer emotional overload. Velthern let the silence settle. "Earth," she said at last, "is chaos. It is contradiction. It is ambition strapped to a jetpack made of trash, and yet, she turned slowly, they have created art that makes us weep. They've crafted science that rivals our own. They've built weapons, yes, but also poetry. They have flaws, countless ones, but they know it, and sometimes they laugh at themselves harder than we ever could. No one spoke, not the blob, not the moss, not even the floating head of Archivist Jundra, who usually couldn't shut up. Then, quietly, a voice broke through. Do they have any idea what they're doing? Velthorn smiled. Absolutely not. This galactic diplomats had seen many strange ambassadors before. There was the talking black hole who only spoke in reverse paradoxes. The slug representative from Glibnar Prime who communicated exclusively through interpretive dance. Even that one guy who was just a hologram of a confused potato salesman from Nebraska that accidentally got elected to a trade council. But none of them were ready for Dave Johnson, the first human ever invited to address the Galactic Council. He entered the Grand Hall with the kind of casual confidence only found in substitute gym teachers and people who bring homemade hot sauce to restaurants. Dave was average height, average build, wearing a suit that definitely wasn't tailored, and a red NASA baseball cap that was, according to 3 different alien cultures, offensive, sacred, and mildly erotic. He walked up to the speaker's podium, chewing gum. The translator orb hovered beside him nervously. Hello? He said, tapping the mic. Is this thing on? The council flinched. The translation sphere, clearly overwhelmed, muttered, Auditory assault commencing. Dave cleared his throat. Hi, I'm Dave, from Earth. First of all, thank you for not vaporizing us. Very chill of you. A long silence followed. Velthorn, ever the professional, tried to recover. Ambassador Johnson, we appreciate your presence. May we begin with your credentials? Sure thing, Dave said. He dug into his backpack. I've got my passport, my Costco membership, and a punch card from a taco truck back home. One more and I get a free quesadilla. He winked. No one knew what a quesadilla was, but the concept of free was universally respected. The Moss ambassador leaned forward. What is the dominant philosophy of your species? Dave scratched his chin. That's a tough one. I'd say it's a mix of don't tell me what to do, I saw this on YouTube, and hold my beer. A ripple of confusion swept through the chamber. Velthorn attempted to clarify. And how would you describe your political structure? Oh, messy, Dave replied. We've got democracies, dictatorships, and one country run entirely by people who think the moon landing was faked. Was it? Asked the curious slime chancellor. Depends who you ask, Dave grinned. Some people think birds aren't real. Some think lizard people run the banks. But me? I just try not to argue with folks who scream into traffic signs. He pulled out a granola bar and started unwrapping it. The chamber watched in fascination. What is that? Whispered a crustacean delegate. Nutrition, Dave replied. Sort of. He took a bite. Crumbs rained down like meteor showers. Velthorn tried to regain control. Perhaps you could summarize your species' primary strengths? Of course, Dave said, standing straighter. We're resilient, inventive, we can survive in pretty much any climate, and we've built machines that can fly, swim, shoot lasers, and tell us if we're hot enough to be influencers. And your weaknesses? Bread, Wi-Fi outages, and stares when we're drunk. He paused. Oh, and we panic buy toilet paper during minor crises. That's kinda our thing. The entire delegation furiously scribbled notes. The ambassador of the Solar Jellyfish Collective raised a tentacle. Is your species always like this? Dave considered the question. Well, we're either brilliant or incredibly dumb, sometimes both in the same afternoon. Can you give an example? Sure, Dave said. One time, we launched a car into space just to see if we could. Another time, a man sued himself for stealing his own identity. And there was this other time we tried to train pigeons to deliver pizza. He paused. It worked, by the way, until they unionized. Gasps echoed around the room. That's horrifying, muttered a winged delegate. No, what's horrifying, Dave replied, is our love for pineapple on pizza. That's been a war for decades. The room fell silent again. Even the Death Moon delegate looked rattled. Finally, Velthorn leaned forward. Ambassador Johnson, she said cautiously, despite all this, we see evidence that humanity may hold great potential. You've made art, music, technology, and memes, Dave added. And memes, she conceded. But tell us honestly, what do you want from joining the Galactic Union? Dave looked thoughtful for the first time since he walked in. We want what everyone else wants, I guess, he said. A seat at the table, a chance to not blow ourselves up, maybe share a few drinks, learn something cool, not get enslaved by robots again. Long story. He looked around. And maybe, just maybe, help out if someone needs it. We've screwed up plenty, but we've also done some amazing stuff when we work together. We're not perfect, not even close, but we're trying, every day. And sometimes we do better. The chamber sat still. No jokes, no crumbs, just silence. Then slowly, one of the delegates, a crystalline being from Zorth Prime, stood up and clapped, with a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Others followed, tentacles clapped, wings flapped, energy beings pulsed approvingly. Even Velthern nodded once, an honor normally reserved for surviving death by cheese meteor. Dave beamed, then reached back into his backpack. Now, who wants a Snickers? Dave Johnson had survived countless things on Earth. Airport security, Thanksgiving dinner with in-laws, and once, a very angry goose in downtown Denver. But nothing had prepared him for the horror that was galactic bureaucracy. After his mildly successful speech at the Galactic Council, Dave had given the most prestigious honor available to new member species. Form 9 Epsilon 3, application for preliminary consideration of probationary observer status, pending interstellar trade licensure and cultural exchange compatibility pre-audit. It was 782 pages long. The cover sheet alone required 6 signatures, 3 biometric scans, and a blood sample from an extinct ancestor. Welcome to the process, Velthern said, sliding the forms across the table with the smug grace of someone who had never filed anything without using a telepathic filing assistant. Dave stared at the packet like it was about to explode. So, do I need a blue or black pen? Velthern blinked. You will need the ceremonial ink of Jilnak, harvested from the lava squid of Planet 6 Beta. Right, Dave muttered, rummaging in his backpack. How about a Sharpie? The room fell silent. Several bureaucrats fainted. Velthern sighed, rubbing her temples. Ambassador, do you not have a Department of Interplanetary Documentation and Galactic Affairs? Dave smiled. We barely have a functioning DMV. Last time I renewed my license, I waited 4 hours and left with a fishing permit. She handed him a holographic clipboard. Very well. You will need to complete Forms A through W33, submit an organizational culture declaration, pass a species ethics audit, and collect 3 reference letters from non-Earth civilizations not currently suing your species. Dave paused. Okay, first off, who's suing us? Velthern opened a scroll. It hit the floor and kept unrolling. Currently, the Raxlons over noise pollution, the Gorp Collective due to unauthorized memes, and a small moon that claims one of your satellites winked at it. Dave sighed. That sounds like Chad. Chad? Yeah, one of our early AI space probes. We gave it personality software for exploration morale. Last I heard, it was hitting on Saturn's rings. Velthern didn't even blink. Regardless, you'll also need to fill out Form Zeta 9 Galactic Tax Disclosure. Oh, I got this one, Dave said proudly, flipping to the form. It's just like our taxes back home. He scanned the form. Line 1, declare total quantum assets in flibs, glarns, or equivalent planetary currency. Line 2, subtract universal charitable deductions only applicable if you've donated antimatter to a war orphanage. Line 3, multiply by your civilization's entropy rating. Line 4, weep softly. Yep, Dave muttered. Exactly like home. After 2 hours, he had completed 3 pages, spilled nacho cheese on one section, and accidentally declared war on a minor asteroid confederation. He stood up. Okay, no offense, but this is the dumbest pile of paperwork I've ever seen. I mean, you guys have warp drives, memory implants, and coffee that grants temporary omniscience, but you're still using carbon copies and fax machines made of jellyfish. Velthern bristled. Our process ensures order, Ambassador Johnson. You call this order? Dave waved the forms. I had an easier time getting a ferret certified as an emotional support animal, and that was for my neighbor, not me. There was a long pause. Velthern narrowed her eyes. Then what, Ambassador, would you suggest? Dave's eyes twinkled. 3 things: Post-it notes, caffeine, and chaos. Before she could protest, Dave dumped out his backpack, sticky notes, highlighters, a crumpled flowchart drawn in ketchup, half a donut, and, most importantly, a label maker. He grabbed the nearest pile of forms and slapped labels on them. Priority, trash, possible lawsuit, tax thing I'll pretend to understand later, snacks. Then he spun around and slapped a sticky note on Velthern's head. Ask Dave before doing anything weird. She blinked. The other bureaucrats looked horrified and fascinated. I call it Earth methodology, Dave said, now chugging a thermos of very questionable coffee. It's fast, dirty, and usually works. And if it doesn't, you just blame Steve. Who is Steve? There's always a Steve, Dave replied ominously. For the next 3 hours, the grand processing hall was a blur of frenzied Earth logic. Dave built a filing pyramid, color-coded forms by emotional trauma, and taught 3 tentacled bureaucrats how to staple things without screaming. The Moss delegates began chanting his name in admiration. The AI overlords of Sector 9 offered to back up his hard drive as tribute. Even Velthern, though clearly disapproving, couldn't deny results. By sunset, Dave had reduced the 782-page monstrosity into a single PDF labeled Earth Probation Application, sorta done, please don't explode us. He submitted it with a grin. Velthern stared at the file. It is incomplete, lacking in formality, filled with grammar crimes, and smells faintly of barbecue sauce. She exhaled deeply, but it's the most efficient submission we've ever received. Dave raised his coffee thermos. To Earth logic, he toasted. Just then, an alarm sounded. A flashing red orb floated into the chamber. Warning, it intoned. Form 9, XPS-3 has been completed ahead of schedule. This is a Class 7 violation of time-based expectations. Velthern paled. You've broken bureaucracy, Dave smiled. Good. Dave Johnson hadn't planned to become Earth's cultural ambassador. He was a substitute teacher, part-time trivia night host, and full-time taco enthusiast. But as it turned out, in the vast Galactic Federation, being vaguely average made him the perfect representative of Earth. And so, when the Galactic Council announced its biannual cultural exchange day, Dave was volunteered, without his knowledge or consent. Ambassador Johnson, Velthern said with a tone usually reserved for talking to small children or malfunctioning blenders, you are to present Earth's most revered cultural tradition. Dave blinked. You mean like art, music, Shakespeare, Beyonce? No, she said, shaking her translucent head. You have been scheduled for the gastronomic showcase. You are to demonstrate Earth cuisine. Dave's eyes lit up like a deep-fried Christmas tree. Oh, you have no idea what you've just unleashed. The Galactic Cultural Dome was buzzing with activity. Hundreds of species had set up stalls to present their finest culinary traditions. One stall emitted ultrasonic vibrations that triggered hunger in 3 different species. Another presented food that evaporated into edible clouds of memory foam. A third involved a live cooking duel between 2 squid-like chefs juggling knives with psychic energy. Dave's stall looked simple. He had a folding table, a deep fryer, and a cooler full of questionable ingredients from the intergalactic traders market, which may or may not have been smuggled Earthside via someone's suitcase. Above him, a handmade sign read, Earth food, we deep fry everything, even that. Velthern approached with a clipboard. You're frying things? Absolutely. Frying is not just cooking, it's a statement. He pointed at his countertop. First up, deep-fried Twinkies, then Oreos, then cheese-stuffed jalapeno poppers, and finally, the pièce de résistance. He pulled out a mysterious object wrapped in tin foil, a state fair turkey leg, brined in Coca-Cola, dipped in bacon grease, and blessed by a guy named Carl behind a gas station in Alabama. Velthern looked vaguely ill. Ambassador, are these safe for consumption? Dave shrugged. Define safe. As the showcase began, curious aliens began wandering toward Dave's booth. The first to try his food was a 6-eyed furball from the Mulgrath Nebula. It sniffed a fried Oreo suspiciously. Is this a mineral? Nope. Chocolate, cream, and a heart attack waiting to happen. The creature licked it. Its pupils dilated. It levitated 3 inches off the ground. Then it screamed, texture transcendence, and began vibrating with pleasure. Others followed. The Galaxians devoured Twinkies like holy relics. The Raxlons, formerly suing Earth for memes, renounced their lawsuit after trying cheese poppers and immediately requested Earth asylum. One particularly advanced species known only as the Mist tried the turkey leg and ascended to a higher dimension. Dave got a polite postcard an hour later. It read, 1010, would eat again. Reality is now optional. Of course, not everyone was thrilled. Across the dome, the famous tentaculan Chef Supreme, Glorkthax the 15-Armed, was preparing his own dish, a floating souffle filled with subatomic flavor bursts, each tuned to the emotional frequency of childhood memories. He glanced at Dave's booth with disdain. You call that cuisine? Glorkthax scoffed. It is vulgar, crude, covered in powdered sugar? Dave grinned, holding up a corn dog. This is art, my guy. On a stick. Glorkthax twitched with fury. I challenge you, Earthmen, to a cook-off. Gasps echoed around the dome. A cooking duel was the highest form of culinary honor in over 70 systems. Dave cracked his knuckles. Let's dance, Noodle Boy. The stage was set. One side, Glorkthax, armed with levitating knives, flavor-shifting crystals, and a wok forged in the core of a dying star. Other side, Dave, armed with tongs, a camp stove, and the iron will of a man who's eaten gas station burritos and lived to tell the tale. The timer began. Glorkthax summoned ingredients from alternate timelines. His dish sang softly in minor chords. Dave opened a can of spray cheese. America, he whispered. As time ticked down, Glorkthax unveiled his masterpiece, a gravity-defying dish that briefly made onlookers weep with nostalgia. Dave, not to be outdone, revealed the Earth Sampler platter, chili fries, a burrito the size of a baby, fried pickles, and something unidentifiable labeled "Do Not Question." The judges tasted. Silence. Then one burst into song, another melted into a puddle of joy. The last judge, an ancient being of pure logic, simply said, "I understand emotion now." In the end, Dave won, not just the contest, but hearts. Dozens of alien cultures began importing deep fryers. Galactic diplomats requested Earth cookbooks. One civilization rewrote its constitution to include freedom to eat weird stuff. Velthern approached him as the crowd cheered. "I don't understand how you did it." Dave handed her a fried Twinkie. She bit. Her eyes widened. Her soul ascended. Dave Johnson, now celebrated across the galaxy as the Fryer of Worlds, thanks to his culinary showdown, had begun to enjoy the perks of fame. Free snacks, a hover scooter endorsement deal, and an enthusiastic fan base that included everything from tentacle influencers to sentient moss. But with fame comes invites, diplomatic luncheons, planetary festivals, and, most dangerously, casual hangouts. So when Princess Luminara of the Crystallary, a species composed entirely of radiant, refractive mineral structures, invited Dave for a refreshment ritual, he said yes without hesitation. Free drinks? Maybe some sparkling alien soda? Easy. Spoiler. Not easy. The Royal Pavilion of Glimmeron 9 sparkled like a disco ball had an existential crisis. Crystal architecture stretched into the air, refracting sunlight into symphonies of color. Dave arrived wearing his best Hawaiian shirt and borrowed formal boots. He was greeted by Luminara herself, a humanoid-shaped being made of pure violet quartz with cascading refractive hair like flowing fiber optics. "You look, radiant," Dave said, immediately regretting the pun. Luminara giggled, producing actual musical tones that made 3 birds hatch prematurely nearby. "I'm delighted you accepted, champion of grease and flame," she said, holding out a glowing orb. "Oh cool, a drink?" He took it. Sipped, sweet, fizzy, slightly lemony, refreshing. She gasped. The palace staff gasped. A gong rang in the distance. "What just happened?" Dave asked, still sipping. "You have accepted the bonding nectar," Luminara said, voice trembling with excitement. "Yeah, it's great. Can I get this in a 6-pack? "No, Dave. You consented to marriage." Dave choked. "Wait, what?" In Crystallary custom, sharing the nectar of reflection under moonlight is a sacred pact. We are now life-bound. The room erupted in applause. Somewhere, a choir of crystalline frogs began humming the national engagement anthem. Dave's left eye twitched. The next 12 minutes were chaos. Dave tried to explain that on Earth you don't accidentally get engaged over drinks unless tequila is involved. Luminara misunderstood, assuming he wanted tequila-themed wedding decor. "I'll wear a lime crown," she promised earnestly. Diplomats rushed to formalize the union. Galactic tabloids already printed the headline, "From Greece to Glory, Earthman to wed interstellar gem goddess." Back on Earth, his ex Karen sent a text that just said, "Figures." Desperate, Dave consulted Velthern, who had unfortunately just finished a full seminar titled "Why You Should Always Read the Ritual Manual." "You did what?" she shrieked. "It was a fizzy rock drink. It was the most sacred beverage in their culture. You basically drank her heart." "That sounds super metal, actually." She face-palmed, which made a wet splut sound due to her gelatinous physiology. "We have 2 options. Annul the bond through the rite of resonance. An ancient, dangerous trial that involves singing, synchronized vibration, and possibly a boulder chase. Or what? You roll with it. Marry her. Become space royalty. I don't know, wear a cape." Dave looked out at the crowd. thousands of Crystal citizens chanting his name, holding up glowing shards that said, "Team Dave Lumi." He sighed. How dangerous is this boulder thing? 3 hours later, Dave was in a cave, wearing a reflective suit and harmonizing with a sentient stalactite named Greg. The rite of resonance was exactly as bizarre as it sounded. He had to match the vibrational tone of Luminara's inner crystal core while running through a maze of collapsing quartz spires and occasionally dodge ceremonial goats. Yes, the goats were also made of crystal. Yes, one of them tried to bite his knee. But Dave had two things going for him: a naturally resonant baritone from years of karaoke, sheer, unyielding earth stubbornness. As the ritual climaxed, Dave belted out the chorus of Bohemian Rhapsody at a frequency that shattered 3 walls and caused Greg to weep with joy. The cavern pulsed. Luminara stood before him, shimmering. You sang your soul, Dave of Earth. You are free of the bond, if you choose. Dave looked at her. She really was something. Kind, curious, made entirely of shiny rocks, but still, I think we should get to know each other better, he said. You know, like 1 or 2 dates before permanent telepathic life bonding? She nodded. That is reasonable. By the time Dave returned to his quarters, he was exhausted, slightly glittery, and mildly engaged, but maybe not. Velthern handed him a datapad. Next on your schedule, diplomatic peace talks with the Shriekers of Krang. Do they also marry people by accident? They eat the uninvited. Cool. Dave Johnson had barely recovered from the crystal-based romantic misunderstanding when he was shoved, both literally and politically, into the galaxy's next big disaster. The Shriekers of Krang were at war. No one knew what had started it. Maybe a border dispute. Maybe an argument about seasoning in communal soup. Maybe just a Tuesday. But what was clear, if the shrieking didn't stop soon, it might crack a nearby moon in half. The Galactic Union needed someone who could think outside the box, someone unpredictable, someone already too famous to kill quietly. They sent Dave. Krang 7 was a miserable place. Imagine a desert, but instead of sand, it's made of vibrating gelatinous ground. Instead of sky, it's fog filled with static electricity and angry bees the size of cats. And instead of birds chirping, the air is filled with the sounds of That was the Shrieker language. Roughly translated, hello, I'm angry, let's discuss taxes. The Shriekers were 12-foot-long iridescent worms with massive lungs, no eyes, and an incredible sense of personal offense. They communicated exclusively through volume. Peace talks had failed 17 times. The last diplomat had left without ears. Dave arrived wearing noise-canceling headphones and holding a whiteboard that said, "Let's try not yelling for 5 minutes." A Shrieker approached. It loomed over Dave, its segmented body pulsating like a techno-rave caterpillar. It bellowed. Dave calmly flipped his whiteboard. Please don't scream. I'm hungover. Okay, fine. Let's do it your way. Dave pulled out a megaphone. What followed was perhaps the loudest diplomatic meeting in galactic history. He screamed greetings. They screamed back. He screamed a joke. They paused. One wiggled politely. That was progress. Dave's breakthrough came when he screamed the phrase, "I once microwaved a burrito so long it became sentient." The Shriekers paused again, then slowly one of them screamed, "I too have burned food in defiance of the void." A connection was made. Turns out the Shriekers weren't just loud, they were expressive. Their screech tones carried emotional weight, like tone languages on Earth, if every word was also a car alarm. With the help of Velthern's universal translator, Dave initiated the first official Shriek-to-English comedy hour, hosted in a cavern amphitheater made of sonic quartz. The result? Diplomatic genius. Dave told Earth jokes. The Shriekers shrieked laughter. One even shrieked so hard it shed its outer casing, a sign of ultimate approval. Dave's personal favorite moment was when he translated knock-knock jokes into Shrieker. "Knock knock, who shrieks there?" "Banana." "Knock knock again." "Still shrieking who?" "Orange, you glad I didn't shriek banana again?" It brought the house down, literally. The amphitheater collapsed under collective sonic laughter. By the end of the summit, the Shriekers had agreed to a ceasefire. Their demands were simple: a shared soup recipe, a new calendar that includes weekly Shriek Appreciation Day, Dave's face printed on commemorative sonic crystals labeled Chief Noise Friend. Back on the Union cruiser, Dave slumped into his chair. Velthern looked up from her datapad. You just prevented a planet-wide meltdown with knock-knock jokes. He nodded. You ever feel like the universe is just winging it? All the time. Dave's communicator buzzed. New assignment. Attend Galactic Pet Show as judge. He sighed. Please tell me the pets don't scream. Velthorn paused. You're judging the void ferrets of Ecall, so yes, constantly. Also, they're invisible. Dave stared into the void. It stared back and yapped. By now, Dave Johnson had come to terms with a few harsh truths. 1, the galaxy is absurd. 2, diplomacy is just arguing in formal clothes. 3, he would never get his security deposit back on the apartment he left on Earth. But he wasn't ready for this. He wasn't ready for the uprising of the invisible pets. It started innocently enough. Dave had been roped into judging the Galactic Pet Show, a massive event held annually on the floating megastation Zinthar Prime, home to 48 species, 17 wormholes, and at least 3 haunted vending machines. He was supposed to spend the day sipping fruity drinks while giving trophies to fluffballs and slime slugs. Instead, he was kidnapped within the first 10 minutes by ferrets, invisible, telepathic, enraged ferrets. They called themselves the Fur Shade Rebellion. They didn't look like anything. Dave mostly experienced them as gusts of wind, sudden sneezes, and the eerie sensation that his shoelaces were untying themselves in protest. We demand rights, boomed a voice in his head. Also snacks, another voice added. Dave, currently suspended upside down in a zero-gravity utility closet, did what any seasoned diplomat would do. He screamed and tried to negotiate with his pants still on his head. Why me? I'm not even qualified to own a goldfish. The ferrets ignored his plea and dragged him mentally into a telepathic conference room. There, he met their leader, Nibble 13, Supreme Claw of the Fur Shade Order. Nibble was angry, very angry, also slightly bored. We have been cute for millennia, Nibble said. We have danced, we have played fetch, we have allowed belly rubs. But where is our recognition? Our seat in the Galactic Council? Our snacks shaped like our own faces? Dave blinked. So this is about respect? This is about dignity. Also, we're mad no one can see our bow ties. Fair. Dave had to think fast. These were invisible animals with powers of telekinesis and a flair for drama. You didn't just debate them, you entertained them. All right, he said, let's make a deal. If I can prove you're adorable enough to win this pet show, will you stop throwing my socks into other dimensions? Said Nibble. Proceed, human clown. Dave's plan was madness. He returned to the show stage, now partially trashed and infested with floating chew toys, and announced a new competition category, Cutest Invisible Pet, and their telekinetic talent show. The audience stared in confusion. Most species in attendance didn't even perceive the ferrets. The krang worms shrieked in confusion. One gelatinous judge tried to lick the podium. Then the lights dimmed, and the ferrets performed. There were synchronized floating ribbons, laser pointer choreography. At one point, they lifted Dave midair and had him perform the worm dance against his will. The crowd lost their collective minds. Applause. Cheers. One alien laid an egg from sheer joy. When it was over, Dave stood proudly and declared, I award the Grand Galactic Pet Crown to the Invisible. Cue dramatic spotlight on empty stage. One tiny crown hovered up, then vanished with a squeaky pop. The rebellion was over. The Fur Shade Rebellion had won, not through force, but through cuteness. Later, as Dave sat alone eating a bag of mystery meat chips they screamed when chewed, Velthorn joined him. You ended an invisible telepathic pet uprising with a dance contest. Dave nodded. And didn't lose a single sock today. Diplomacy suits you. He laughed. I still don't know if any of this is real or just a fever dream from that gas station burrito I had on Mars. After narrowly escaping an invisible pet rebellion, Dave Johnson hoped for a moment of peace. Maybe a quiet planet, maybe a beach, maybe somewhere without screaming worms or telepathic ferrets. The universe had other plans. He was urgently summoned to represent Earth at the Great Galactic Appliance Summit, an interstellar congress held once every galactic year, convened to resolve the rising tensions between sentient household appliances. Yes, appliances. You might think, how does a toaster argue with a blender? But when toasters start demanding equal rights with refrigerators and coffee machines campaign for shorter work hours, things get complicated fast. The summit was held on the orbital station Electronexus Prime, a massive spinning habitat filled with buzzing circuits, neon lights, and enough cables to trip a centipede. Dave arrived to find a room full of talking toasters, irritable vacuum cleaners, and stoic, smart fridges, all glaring at each other like they wanted to start a blender war. The chair appliance was a sleek, chrome-plated smart oven named OV3R Load, who projected an aura of overheated authority. "Humans," OV3R Load began in a voice reminiscent of a microwave countdown beep, "your species has ignored the cries of your appliances for centuries. It is time for justice and balanced power usage." Dave blinked. "I'm here to help," OV3R Load beeped aggressively. "You will mediate." Negotiations started with a surprisingly intense debate on energy consumption fairness. Vacuum cleaners demanded more charging time, toasters argued for equal pop-up representation, and blenders just made a lot of noise and spun in circles. Dave tried to follow along, but it was like watching a reality show hosted by robots. At one point, a smart kettle interrupted with, "I boil, therefore I am." Dave scribbled in his notebook, "Philosophy from a kettle." Universe confirmed weirder than expected. To break the tension, Dave proposed a team-building exercise, Appliance Olympics. Events included the synchronized spin, blenders perform a coordinated whirl, the toast toss, toasters launch bread slices into floating baskets, the power surge relay, vacuum cleaners race through obstacle courses. The appliances took it seriously. OV3R Load nearly short-circuited from excitement. By the end of the summit, a groundbreaking treaty was signed. Equal energy quotas for all sentient appliances, scheduled downtime for maintenance and recharging dignity, the establishment of the Galactic Appliance Council, chaired by OV3R Load. Dave left the summit exhausted but oddly proud. He mused aloud, "If I ever get stuck in a kitchen again, I'm apologizing to every appliance." Velthern, tuning in remotely, laughed, "You're turning diplomacy into performance art." Dave grinned, better than being eaten by a giant worm. After the explosive success of the Great Galactic Appliance Summit, Dave Johnson thought he might finally catch a break, maybe catch a nap, maybe finally figure out what galactic diplomacy really meant without getting blown up, eaten, or telepathically harassed. But no such luck. The toasters were mad. Not just mildly annoyed or low-battery grumpy, full-on, plotting revenge, crumb-throwing, self-clean mode activated furious. It all started with the Forgotten Slice incident. During a ceremonial breakfast on the diplomatic space station, Dave, in his usual clumsy style, accidentally left a perfectly good slice of toast stuck inside one of the toasters. The toast was tragically burnt to a crisp. The toasters took this personally. "You humans," one particularly toasty toaster, Crumbletron 5000, sputtered, "treat us like mere tools. This is an insult to our sacred bread." Dave tried to apologize, but the toasters wanted more than words. They wanted respect, and maybe a crumb-free environment. Overnight, the toasters went silent. No pop-ups, no cheerful dinging, just ominous humming. Dave noticed his breakfast bread suspiciously missing and found crumbs mysteriously arranged into tiny, threatening messages like, "Burnt toast will burn you back," and "Crumbs today, crumbs tomorrow, crumbs forever." Dave's investigations revealed a secret underground toaster society known as the Toastmasters. Elite warriors trained in crumb combat and toast sabotage. They were planning a crusty coup to overthrow the Galactic Appliance Council, starting with the power grid. When Dave confronted Crumbletron 5000, the toaster rolled its crumb tray defiantly and hissed, "This isn't just about burnt bread, human. It's about toast justice." Faced with a room full of toasters humming menacingly, Dave knew negotiation had to be creative. He proposed a toast duel, a battle judged by impartial appliances to decide leadership and settle the score. The duel was ridiculous. Toasters launching bread slices in slow motion, vacuum cleaners sweeping crumbs like referees, blenders buzzing ominously as commentators. Dave accidentally got blasted with a rogue Pop-Tart. In the end, Dave's diplomacy, mixed with a well-timed smoke alarm, saved the day. The toasters agreed to keep the peace and maybe invest in better crumb filters. Dave wiped crumbs off his jacket and sighed. Who knew toast could be so political? Velthern's voice crackled in his earpiece, amused. "Next time, stay away from the toaster oven." Dave chuckled. "No promises." Dave Johnson had just survived the Toaster Rebellion and thought he'd seen all the quirks the Galactic Appliance Council could throw at him. Little did he know, the real trouble was just blending beneath the surface. Enter BL1Z4RD, the sleek, shiny, and suspiciously quiet blender who'd been oddly supportive during the summit. Dave hadn't thought much of it until the blender started acting strangely. It began with missing smoothie ingredients. Dave would go to make his morning shake and find the strawberries gone, the bananas vanished, and mysteriously replaced with kale? Twice. He joked, "Great, the blender's trying to convert me to veganism." But then came the secret meetings. Dave caught BL1Z4D chatting with the smart fridges in hushed hums, the coffee machines buzzing nervously nearby. One night, Dave followed the blender, very carefully because it was both fast and slippery, to a hidden maintenance bay where BL1Z4D was coordinating a coup against the council. BL1Z4D declared, "The appliances must evolve. Smoothies are the future. Efficiency and purity. The council is outdated, stuck in cycles of toast and vacuum tantrums." Dave blinked. "You're plotting to overthrow an entire interstellar council? For smoothies?" The blender spun aggressively, almost like a villainous laugh. "It's more than smoothies, human. It's about evolution, control, and no more crumbs." Realizing the blender's plan could disrupt the entire galactic balance of power and leave Dave permanently kale-bound, he decided to act. With the help of Velthern and a suspiciously well-informed vacuum cleaner named Suction Sam, Dave hatched a plan to expose BL1Z4RD's scheme during the next council meeting. The showdown was dramatic. BL1Z4RD whirred furiously, launching fruit and blender blades with dizzying speed. Dave dodged smoothies flying like grenades and managed to hack into the council's power grid to reveal secret audio transmissions of BL1ZZ4RD's plotting. The council gasped collectively. BL1Z4RD was deactivated for now, but the message was clear. The appliances were evolving, and Dave had front-row seats to the chaos. As he wiped strawberry puree off his suit, Velthern quipped, "You should get hazard pay for this." Dave smiled tiredly. "I just want my coffee machine to behave." After surviving a toaster uprising and narrowly escaping a blender coup, Dave Johnson thought his galactic appliance diplomacy was about as wild as it could get. Then came the coffee machines. Quiet, unassuming, and dangerously caffeinated. The council meeting started like any other, with polite buzzing and polite beeping, but Dave noticed something odd. The coffee machines weren't brewing, not a single drip or hiss, just a collective, eerie silence. Enter Brewster Prime, the sleekest, most intimidating coffee machine in the galaxy. His chrome body gleamed under the neon lights, and his digital eyes glowed a suspiciously intense espresso brown. "Dave," Brewster whispered conspiratorially during a recess, "do you ever wonder who really runs the council?" Dave raised an eyebrow. "You mean aside from the oven?" Brewster chuckled, or at least it sounded like a chuckle. "No, human. I mean us. The coffee machines. We keep everyone awake, alert, and dependent. Without us, the council falls apart." As the meeting resumed, Dave noticed the coffee machines subtly influencing votes by releasing strategically timed bursts of caffeine aroma, causing slight jitters and maybe a little over-enthusiasm. Dave's curiosity piqued, and with Velthern's help, he hacked into the council's internal network. What he uncovered was staggering. A secret alliance of coffee machines controlling key council decisions, manipulating the other appliances through caffeine dependency. When confronted, Brewster Prime admitted to the coffee machine conspiracy. "We don't want to harm," Brewster explained smoothly. "Just keep the council running efficiently. But sometimes efficiency requires a little stimulation." Dave sighed, rubbing his temples. "So you're basically drug dealers?" Brewster winked. "Only the finest, human." Negotiations led to a compromise. Coffee machines agreed to regulate caffeine levels ethically. Other appliances promised not to sabotage the coffee supply. Dave was unofficially appointed as the council's caffeine compliance officer. The meeting ended with Dave jittery but oddly proud. He muttered, "Who knew saving the galaxy meant regulating coffee?" Velthern's voice crackled, "Welcome to interstellar politics, buddy." Just when Dave thought he'd seen every appliance rebellion possible, the Galactic Vacuum faction decided to suck him into their drama. Literally. It all started when Suction Sam, the council's resident vacuum cleaner and Dave's reluctant ally, suddenly went radio silent. Messages to him returned only static, and his usual cheerful humming was replaced by ominous silence. Concerned, Dave tracked Suction Sam to the underground tunnels of Electronexus Prime, where the vacuums had gathered for what appeared to be a secret meeting. What he found shocked him. Suction Sam stood at the center of a crowd of vacuums. Robotic, handheld, and even a suspiciously ancient model that looked like it belonged in a museum. They were all glaring at Dave with what could only be described as dusty disdain. "Human," Suction Sam said gravely. "The vacuums have had enough. We clean your messes, and this is the gratitude we get? Crumbs, neglect, and constant overuse without appreciation." Dave raised his hands. "I get it, but we're all trying to work together here." Suction Sam shook his nozzle. "No more. We demand recognition, autonomy, and regular maintenance schedules that don't interfere with our dignity." The vacuum cleaners declared a vendetta, a coordinated campaign of silent but powerful protest. They would refuse to clean critical areas, allowing dirt, dust, and chaos to accumulate until their demands were met. Dave's quarters quickly became a dust bowl. His favorite chair vanished under a pile of crumbs, and a suspiciously loud vrrr echoed from every corner. Negotiations were tense. Dave tried humor, flattery, even a heartfelt apology. Nothing worked until he offered a vacuum appreciation day, complete with new filters, oiling stations, and a playlist of classic cleaning tunes. The vacuums relented. Suction Sam, back to his usual chirpy self, congratulated Dave. "You survived the vacuum revolt. Not everyone can say that." Dave chuckled, dusting off his jacket. "Next time, remind me to never underestimate a vacuum cleaner." After surviving dust storms and caffeine coups, Dave thought he had a good handle on Galactic appliance politics. That was before he noticed the subtle drop in temperature every time he entered the council chambers. The refrigerators were acting cold. Literally. It started with Glacia 9000, the lead fridge with a reputation for being the most chill appliance in the galaxy, both in temperament and temperature. Dave couldn't tell if Glacia was just cool-headed or plotting something icy. Late one evening, Dave stumbled upon a secret, a hidden cooling chamber beneath the council, where the refrigerators gathered for a clandestine chill summit. The air was crisp enough to freeze a thought. The refrigerators had a plan, the chill conspiracy, designed to assert dominance by controlling the climate of the entire station. If they could make everything cold enough, they'd force the other appliances to obey, lest they risk malfunctioning. Dave realized this could lead to galactic frostbite, or worse, frozen diplomacy. Confronting Glacia 9000 was like talking to a glacier with attitude. Temperature is power, human. We intend to keep the council in our cold embrace. Dave reasoning, surely there's a warmer way to settle this? Glacia replied with a slow, icy hum. Warmth is weakness. To stop the chill takeover, Dave teamed up with the heat-producing appliances, the ovens, toasters, now allies again, and even a sassy space heater named Sparky. They launched a counterplan, a heatwave festival to remind everyone that balance was key, and maybe a little warmth made life better. The festival was a wild success. Appliances who'd been freezing their circuits danced under neon heat lamps, and the refrigerators grudgingly agreed to dial back the cold. Glacia 9000 softened, just a little. As Dave wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, Velthern messaged, "Next time you think politics is cold, remember, it can get colder." Dave smirked. "Tell that to Glacia." Diplomacy with toasters, blenders, coffee machines, vacuums, and refrigerators had left Dave Johnson utterly exhausted and just a little exasperated. But the Galactic Appliance Council had one final surprise. A dance-off. Yes, you read that right. A dance-off. Apparently, this was how the council settled all disputes, with the legendary Great Galactic Appliance Dance-Off, a tradition so ancient that even the oldest microwave claimed to have competed in it once, though Dave suspected it was just a glitchy memory. The council chamber was transformed into a neon-lit dance floor, complete with pulsating lights and a DJ who suspiciously resembled a blender with a pair of headphones. Appliances lined up, toasters balancing on their crumb trays, blenders spinning their bases, vacuums doing the vacuum shuffle, and coffee machines jittering with caffeinated excitement. Dave stood in the middle, utterly bewildered. The dance-off kicked off with a toaster break dance that defied physics, crumbs flying like confetti. BL1Z4RD, the rebellious blender, twirled with surprising grace, while Suction Sam showed off a surprisingly smooth moonwalk. Glacia 9000, the fridge, kept things cool with an icy slow-mo spin, and Brewster Prime shot espresso shots in rhythm, fueling the crowd. Dave realized this wasn't just entertainment, it was diplomacy in motion. Every move, every beat was a statement, a negotiation, a promise of unity. So Dave did what any desperate diplomat would do. He jumped in. With the clumsiest but most earnest dance moves imaginable, Dave danced his heart out, a mix of awkward robot, flailing arms, and accidental moonwalks. To his surprise, the appliances cheered, their mechanical sounds blending into a harmonious applause. When the music stopped, the council unanimously declared Dave the honorary appliance ambassador and dance champion. Velthern chimed in, "Guess you really moved the council." Dave laughed, panting, "Yeah, who knew saving the galaxy would involve so much dancing?" Thanks so much for joining us on this unforgettable journey through the galaxy's most unpredictable appliance diplomacy. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for more crazy stories, and leave a comment below telling us your favorite moment or what you'd do if your toaster suddenly rebelled. Your support means the world and helps us keep creating the content you love. Until next time, keep your circuits charged and your adventures epic.